Right now, 42% of retirees could allegedly receive nothing from the $2,000 stimulus being discussed, not because they don't qualify, but because they're calculating eligibility completely wrong. The rules allegedly being considered don't work the way most people think, and that misunderstanding is going to cost thousands of seniors real money. This isn't about headlines or promises, it's about understanding how the system actually determines who gets paid and who doesn't. In the next few minutes, we're breaking down exactly why so many are at risk of getting zero. Let's start with the truth that's allegedly being overlooked in every headline you've seen. If you believe a new $2,000 stimulus payment will automatically come to you simply because you're retired, you're operating on hope, not information. And hope, as comforting as it feels, doesn't deposit money into your bank account. What allegedly matters most, according to the eligibility frameworks being discussed, is understanding how the IRS actually determines who gets paid and who doesn't. And here's the part that's going to surprise you. The answer allegedly has nothing to do with how much you need the money, how long you've been retired, or how carefully you've managed your expenses. It has everything to do with tax records, filing status, and how income is reported inside the IRS system. That disconnect is where the problem begins, and it's allegedly where 42% of retirees are going to fall through the cracks. Here's what's allegedly happening right now with these eligibility discussions. Stimulus frameworks are being evaluated, rules are being reviewed, and models are being analyzed. But most of the public conversation gives you headlines, not details. You hear phrases like relief for seniors or payments for people under a certain income, and your brain fills in the blanks. You think, I'm a senior, my income is modest, I should be fine. But the IRS allegedly doesn't operate on should. It operates on precise data points, and if those points don't align exactly right, the payment allegedly never arrives. No explanation, no second chance, just silence. The first major misunderstanding that allegedly trips up retirees involves how income is calculated. Most people think about income the way households do, all the money coming into the home from every person, every source, all combined together. That's how you pay bills, that's how you budget, that's how life actually works. But stimulus eligibility allegedly doesn't care how life works. It cares how the IRS system works, and the IRS allegedly does not look at household income. It looks at tax filing income. That's a completely different measurement, and confusing the two is allegedly one of the fastest ways to miscalculate whether you're eligible or not. Let me make this concrete with an example that allegedly happens in thousands of homes. Imagine you're a retiree living with your adult daughter. She works full-time and earns $60,000 a year. You receive Social Security, let's say $18,000 annually. When you think about your household, you might add those numbers together and assume your combined income is $78,000. Then you hear that stimulus payments allegedly phase out above certain limits, and you think we're over, we don't qualify. But here's what you're allegedly missing. Your daughter files her taxes separately, you file yours separately, or maybe you don't file at all because your income is low enough. In the IRS system, you allegedly are not a combined financial unit unless one of you claims the other as a dependent. Your $18,000 and her $60,000 allegedly exist in completely separate eligibility lanes. Your household income allegedly doesn't disqualify you, but your assumption that it does just allegedly cost you $2,000. This mistake allegedly happens thousands of times, quietly, in homes across the country. Retirees living with family members, adult children, grandchildren, siblings automatically assume that everyone's income allegedly gets pooled together for eligibility purposes. It doesn't. The IRS allegedly evaluates you as an individual taxpayer or as part of a married couple if you file jointly. It allegedly does not evaluate you as a household. That distinction allegedly matters more than almost anything else, and yet it's allegedly one of the least understood parts of the entire system. Now let's talk about the income limits themselves, because this is allegedly where headlines do the most damage. You've probably seen some version of this: stimulus payments for people earning under $100,000. It sounds straightforward, it sounds reassuring, and it's allegedly dangerously incomplete. Stimulus eligibility allegedly does not rely on one universal income number that applies to everyone. It allegedly depends entirely on your filing status. Based on how past stimulus programs have worked and allegedly how future frameworks are being modeled, here's what the structure typically looks like. Single filers allegedly qualify for the full payment if their adjusted gross income is up to $75,000. Married couples filing jointly allegedly qualify for the full amount up to $150,000. Head of household filers allegedly have a threshold around $112,500. Those are allegedly the starting points for full payments, but here's the part that allegedly costs people money. Payments don't vanish the moment you cross those lines. They allegedly phase out gradually. Let me explain what phase out allegedly means, because this is where retirees allegedly leave money on the table without realizing it. Let's say you're a single filer and your adjusted gross income last year was $82,000. You hear the limit is allegedly $75,000, so you assume you get nothing. That assumption is allegedly wrong. What allegedly happens is your payment decreases incrementally as your income rises above the threshold. You might allegedly still receive $1,500, maybe more, depending on exactly how the phase-out formula is structured. But if you never check, if you simply assume you're disqualified, that $1,500 allegedly stays unclaimed. It doesn't get redistributed to someone else. It allegedly just disappears into the system, unprocessed because you stopped paying attention. This allegedly happens constantly. Retirees hear one number, compare it to their situation in the most pessimistic way possible, and conclude they're out of luck. They don't verify, they don't calculate the phase-out, they just assume the worst and move on. And partial payments that allegedly could have covered a month of groceries or a medical bill or part of the rent, real money that solves real problems, allegedly never arrive. Let's dig deeper into what income the IRS actually counts, because this is another area where assumptions create problems. The IRS allegedly uses something called adjusted gross income, or AGI. That's not the same as your monthly deposits, it's not the same as your Social Security statement, and it's not the same as what you think of as your total yearly income. Adjusted gross income is allegedly a specific line on your tax return. It's your total income minus certain deductions the IRS allows. For retirees, this gets complicated quickly because not all Social Security income is taxable. Whether your Social Security allegedly counts towards your AGI depends on your other income sources and your filing status. If Social Security is your only income, much of it allegedly may not be taxable at all, which means your AGI could allegedly be far lower than you think. But if you also have a pension, investment income, or part-time work, portions of your Social Security can allegedly become taxable, raising your AGI in ways that aren't always intuitive. Here's the problem that allegedly affects most retirees. Most people don't sit down and calculate their adjusted gross income from memory. They think in terms of what hits their bank account each month. So when they try to self-assess stimulus eligibility, they're allegedly using the wrong number entirely. They're comparing apples to oranges, and then making financial decisions based on bad math. That's not a mistake born from carelessness, it's allegedly a mistake born from not understanding that the IRS speaks a different language than the one you use to manage your daily life. Now, let's address a myth that allegedly refuses to die: the idea that receiving Social Security automatically qualifies you for stimulus payments and automatically ensures the IRS knows how to reach you. Both parts of that belief are allegedly false. Yes, many Social Security recipients allegedly do qualify for stimulus payments, but qualification and automatic processing are allegedly not the same thing. Stimulus payments are allegedly issued through the IRS, not through the Social Security Administration. The IRS allegedly relies on tax return data to determine eligibility, calculate payment amounts, and figure out where to send the money: your address, your bank information, all of it. If you haven't filed a tax return recently because your income is low enough that you're not required to, the IRS allegedly may not have current information for you. Your address could allegedly be outdated, your bank details might allegedly be missing, your income data might allegedly be years old, making it difficult for the system to verify eligibility automatically. This is allegedly exactly what happened in previous stimulus rounds. Millions of Social Security recipients allegedly experienced delays, not because they didn't qualify, but because the IRS allegedly didn't have the right data to process payments quickly. Some people allegedly waited months. Others allegedly had to wait until the stimulus was converted into a refundable tax credit, which meant they had to file a return they never expected to file just to claim money they were entitled to all along. and some people, through sheer frustration or confusion, allegedly gave up entirely and never received anything. Let me be very clear about what this allegedly means for you. If you receive Social Security, SSDI, or SSI, and you do not normally file taxes, you are allegedly not automatically in the system the way you think you are. The Social Security Administration and the IRS are allegedly separate entities. They share some information, but allegedly not in real time, and not always in the format the IRS needs to issue payments immediately. Being visible to Social Security allegedly does not make you visible to the IRS in the way that matters for stimulus distribution. That gap is allegedly why so many eligible retirees get paid last, if they get paid at all. Now we need to talk about something that allegedly creates more confusion than almost any other factor in this entire process: the idea that all retirees are treated the same way by the system. They're allegedly not even close. The IRS allegedly doesn't see one big category called retirees and apply a single set of rules. Instead, retirees allegedly fall into at least 6 distinct eligibility groups, and each group allegedly interacts with stimulus rules differently. If you don't know which group you allegedly fit into, you're navigating blindfolded, and that's allegedly exactly how people who should qualify end up with nothing. Let's walk through these groups carefully because understanding where you allegedly fit changes everything. The first group is allegedly working single filers. These are retirees who still work part-time or have income from sources other than Social Security. For this group, eligibility allegedly depends entirely on individual adjusted gross income and filing status. Age allegedly doesn't protect you. Being retired allegedly doesn't give you special treatment. You're allegedly evaluated exactly like any other single filer, and if your AGI pushes you into phase-out territory, your payment allegedly shrinks accordingly. The second group is allegedly married couples filing jointly. Here, the system allegedly looks at combined adjusted gross income from both spouses. The income thresholds are allegedly higher for joint filers, which means many couples still allegedly qualify for full or partial payments even when their combined income seems significant. But this is also allegedly where mistakes happen. One spouse assumes the other's income allegedly disqualifies them both without checking the actual numbers, or they allegedly forget that filing jointly creates one eligibility unit, not two separate chances at payment. The rules are allegedly more generous for joint filers, but only if you actually understand how the math works. The third group allegedly includes households with dependents. If you claim a dependent, whether that's a grandchild you're raising, an adult child with disabilities, or anyone else the IRS recognizes as your dependent, your payment structure allegedly changes. Claiming dependents can allegedly increase your total payment amount in some stimulus programs, but it also allegedly adds layers of complexity, especially if those dependents are adults or if custody and tax filing responsibilities are shared across multiple households. The system allegedly doesn't always handle these situations cleanly, and confusion here can allegedly delay payments or create eligibility questions that take time to resolve. The fourth group is allegedly retirees over 65 who receive Social Security as their only income. Many people in this group allegedly do qualify for stimulus payments. The problem allegedly isn't eligibility, it's processing speed. If there's no recent tax return on file, the IRS allegedly has to rely on data sharing agreements with the Social Security Administration, and that pipeline is allegedly slower. It's not broken, but it's allegedly not fast either. Retirees in this group allegedly receive payments weeks or months after everyone else, and the waiting period allegedly creates enormous anxiety because there's no way to check status, no way to speed things up, and no clear communication about when the money will arrive. The fifth group allegedly includes people receiving SSDI or SSI. Historically, SSI recipients have almost always qualified for stimulus payments because SSI is needs-based, and recipients, by definition, allegedly have very low income. But again, timing is the issue. The IRS allegedly needs accurate information to process payments, and if that information isn't transmitted quickly from Social Security to the IRS, delays allegedly happen.
SSDI recipients allegedly face similar challenges. Eligibility is usually allegedly clear, but the mechanics of getting the payment delivered allegedly depend on systems talking to each other efficiently, and that doesn't always happen on a timeline that makes sense to the people waiting. Now we need to talk about something that allegedly creates more confusion than almost any other factor in this entire process: the idea that all retirees are treated the same way by the system. They're allegedly not even close. The IRS allegedly doesn't see one big category called retirees and apply a single set of rules. Instead, retirees allegedly fall into at least 6 distinct eligibility groups, and each group allegedly interacts with stimulus rules differently. If you don't know which group you allegedly fit into, you're navigating blindfolded, and that's allegedly exactly how people who should qualify end up with nothing. Let's walk through these groups carefully because understanding where you allegedly fit changes everything. The first group is allegedly working single filers. These are retirees who still work part-time or have income from sources other than Social Security. For this group, eligibility allegedly depends entirely on individual adjusted gross income and filing status. Age allegedly doesn't protect you. Being retired allegedly doesn't give you special treatment. You're allegedly evaluated exactly like any other single filer, and if your AGI pushes you into phase-out territory, your payment allegedly shrinks accordingly. The second group is allegedly married couples filing jointly. Here, the system allegedly looks at combined adjusted gross income from both spouses. The income thresholds are allegedly higher for joint filers, which means many couples still allegedly qualify for full or partial payments even when their combined income seems significant. But this is also allegedly where mistakes happen. One spouse assumes the other's income allegedly disqualifies them both without checking the actual numbers, or they allegedly forget that filing jointly creates one eligibility unit, not 2 separate chances at payment. The rules are allegedly more generous for joint filers, but only if you actually understand how the math works. The third group allegedly includes households with dependents. If you claim a dependent, whether that's a grandchild you're raising, an adult child with disabilities, or anyone else the IRS recognizes as your dependent, your payment structure allegedly changes. Claiming dependents can allegedly increase your total payment amount in some stimulus programs, but it also allegedly adds layers of complexity, especially if those dependents are adults or if custody and tax filing responsibilities are shared across multiple households. The system allegedly doesn't always handle these situations cleanly, and confusion here can allegedly delay payments or create eligibility questions that take time to resolve. Now let's talk about 3 other reasons why eligible retirees allegedly still end up with $0, even when they've done everything else right. The first reason is allegedly federal offsets. If you owe certain types of federal debt, past due child support is the most common example, but it can also allegedly include specific tax debts or other government obligations. The IRS can allegedly intercept your stimulus payment before it ever reaches you. The payment is allegedly issued, your eligibility is allegedly confirmed, but the money allegedly gets redirected to pay down your debt, and you never see it. On paper, you allegedly received the payment. In reality, your bank account didn't change. This allegedly surprises people because stimulus payments in some past rounds were protected from most offsets, but not all of them, and the rules allegedly vary depending on exactly how the program is structured.
The second reason allegedly involves missing or invalid identification in the IRS system. To receive a stimulus payment, you generally allegedly need a Social Security number that's valid for work purposes. People who only have an individual taxpayer identification number, an ITIN, are allegedly often excluded from stimulus eligibility, even if they've lived in the country for years, even if they filed taxes every year, even if their income qualifies them in every other way. The system allegedly draws a hard line at the type of identification number you have, and if you don't have the right one, eligibility allegedly disappears regardless of your circumstances. This allegedly affects more retirees than you might expect, particularly immigrants who came to the country later in life and never obtained Social social security numbers because they didn't work long enough in jobs that required one. The third reason is the one that allegedly feels the most unfair, being claimed as a dependent, which we just discussed. But it's worth repeating because the frustration it allegedly causes is enormous. You can be 75 years old, you can have low income, you can need the money desperately, but if someone else legally claims you as a dependent, your individual stimulus eligibility allegedly evaporates. You don't get a say in the decision. You allegedly don't get notified ahead of time. You just find out later when the payment doesn't come, and by then it's allegedly too late to do anything about it for that round. None of these three reasons allegedly have anything to do with whether you need the money. None of them are allegedly designed to punish people. They're just mechanical rules allegedly built into a system that prioritizes data accuracy over individual circumstances. The IRS allegedly processes millions of payments. It can't stop and evaluate every unique situation. It allegedly applies the rules as written, and if you hit one of these exclusion triggers, the payment allegedly stops. No appeal, no review. Just done. Here's what allegedly makes all of this even harder. Most retirees don't find out they've been excluded until the payment window has already passed. They wait, they assume the money is coming, they check their bank account every few days, then every week, then less frequently as hope fades. Eventually, they start asking questions, and that's when they allegedly discover they were claimed as a dependent, or that an offset intercepted the payment, or that their identification status disqualified them from the start. By the time they have answers, the opportunity is allegedly gone, and stimulus programs allegedly don't offer makeup rounds based on confusion or hardship. The system allegedly moved on without them. At this point, we need to address the single most dangerous belief that allegedly costs retirees real money, the assumption that being over the income limit means you get nothing at all. This belief is allegedly so widespread, so deeply ingrained that it has caused thousands of eligible people to simply stop checking, stop calculating, and stop claiming money they were legally entitled to receive. And the worst part is, it's allegedly completely wrong. Income limits for stimulus payments are allegedly not cliffs. They're not hard cutoffs where $1 over allegedly means zero payment. They're allegedly phase-out ranges, which means payments decrease gradually as income rises. They allegedly shrink incrementally, not instantly. But if you don't understand how phase-outs allegedly work, you'll never know that being slightly over the threshold allegedly still leaves you eligible for a substantial partial payment. Let me give you a concrete example so you can see exactly how this allegedly works. Let's say you're a single filer and the full payment threshold is allegedly set at $75,000 of adjusted gross income. You look at your most recent tax return and see your AGI was $82,000. You hear the $75,000 limit mentioned in a news segment, you do some quick mental math and you think, I'm over, I don't qualify. So you stop paying attention. You don't check the IRS website, you don't follow up, you just assume you're out. But here's what you allegedly missed. Under typical phase-out structures, your payment allegedly doesn't disappear at $75,001. It allegedly begins reducing at a specific rate, often $50 for every $1,000 over the limit. So at $82,000, you might still allegedly receive $1,650 or more, depending on the exact formula. That's not pocket change, that's rent, that's medication, that's 2 weeks of groceries. But because you assumed the worst and never verified the math, that money was allegedly never claimed. It allegedly just sat there unclaimed until the window closed. This allegedly happens over and over again in household after household. Retirees with income just above the full payment threshold allegedly convince themselves they're completely disqualified, and they walk away from partial payments that could have made a meaningful difference. And here's the cruel irony. The people most likely to make this mistake are allegedly often the ones who need the money most. They're not wealthy, they're not financially comfortable, they're just slightly over the line, and they assume that slight difference allegedly disqualifies them entirely. It doesn't, but their assumption allegedly becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because they never take the next step to find out the truth. Now let's talk about what income allegedly actually means in this context, because even the term adjusted gross income confuses people. If you're a retiree with mixed income sources, Social Security combined with a small pension, maybe some part-time work, maybe occasional withdrawals from a retirement account, your AGI can allegedly fluctuate in ways that aren't immediately obvious. A one-time withdrawal to cover an emergency can allegedly temporarily bump your AGI higher, pushing you into phase-out territory for that tax year. But that allegedly doesn't mean you're disqualified. It just means your payment amount changes. The system allegedly doesn't care why your income was higher. It doesn't evaluate whether the increase was necessary or temporary. It allegedly just calculates eligibility based on the number reported on your tax return. Understanding this allegedly matters because retirees often look at one unusual year and assume that's their permanent situation. It's not. Your AGI can allegedly shift year to year based on decisions you make, income sources that start or stop, and financial events you didn't plan for. But once you decide you're disqualified, you allegedly stop checking, and opportunities allegedly slip past. Now let's shift to something that allegedly makes all of this even dangerous: the misinformation and scams that appear the moment stimulus payments are discussed publicly. For retirees, this is allegedly one of the most treacherous parts of the entire process, because uncertainty creates opportunity for bad actors. And right now, uncertainty is allegedly everywhere. Here's the most important rule you allegedly need to remember, and I need you to hear this clearly. The IRS allegedly does not call you about stimulus payments. They allegedly don't text you. They allegedly don't email you asking for personal information, bank details, social security numbers, or any kind of verification to release your money. Any message that does those things, any call, any text, any email, is allegedly a scam. Period. No exceptions. Scammers allegedly know that retirees are waiting for payments. They allegedly know people are anxious, confused, and hoping for good news, so they create urgency. They allegedly send messages saying your payment is on hold, that you need to verify your identity immediately, that there's a problem with your account that requires immediate action. Every single one of those messages is allegedly designed to steal from you. The IRS allegedly does not operate that way. They send official letters through the mail, they post updates on irs.gov, they allegedly do not create artificial urgency through phone calls or text messages. If you receive any communication that pressures you to act fast, to provide information quickly, to pay a fee to release your payment, stop. Do not respond, do not click any links provided in the message. Just delete it and move on.
But scams allegedly aren't the only problem. Misinformation allegedly spreads just as easily, and it's often harder to recognize because it doesn't feel malicious. It's videos that allegedly oversimplify eligibility. It's social media posts that allegedly say everyone qualifies, or that Social Security recipients are guaranteed payments, or that income doesn't matter if you're over a certain age. None of that is allegedly true, but it sounds reassuring, and people want to believe it, so they share it, repeat it, and base decisions on it. Then reality allegedly arrives and the rules don't match what they were told. Misinformation allegedly doesn't steal your bank password, but it steals something just as valuable: your ability to make informed decisions. It allegedly convinces you to stop questioning, stop verifying, stop looking at official sources because someone on the internet sounded confident. Here's how to allegedly protect yourself from both scams and misinformation. Trust only official sources: irs.gov, official Social Security Administration communications, and direct notices mailed to your home address. Do not trust forwarded messages. Do not trust viral posts. Do not trust people allegedly offering paid help to speed up your payment or guarantee approval. Legitimate information is allegedly free. It's publicly available. It allegedly doesn't come with urgency, fees, or promises that sound too good to be true. In moments like this, doing nothing is allegedly often safer than doing the wrong thing. Ignoring noise, resisting pressure, and waiting for official confirmation allegedly protects you far better than reacting to every message that creates panic. So what should you actually do instead of guessing whether you qualify? Let's be very practical here. Guessing is allegedly what most retirees are doing right now. They hear a headline, they compare themselves to a neighbor or a friend, they remember a number from a news segment 3 weeks ago, and then they decide quietly, privately, whether they think they'll get the payment or not. That approach is allegedly not just unreliable, it's expensive. Stimulus eligibility is allegedly based on specific IRS data points, not feelings, not comparisons, not what seems fair. If you want to know where you actually stand, you allegedly need to focus on 3 concrete steps. First, know your filing status and your most recent adjusted gross income. These 2 pieces of information allegedly eliminate most confusion immediately. Your filing status allegedly tells you which income threshold applies to you. Your AGI allegedly tells you where you fall relative to that threshold. You don't need to guess, you don't need to estimate. You allegedly just need to look at your most recent tax return and find those 2 numbers. If you filed taxes, they're right there. If you didn't file because your income was too low, that's also allegedly valuable information. It tells you that you may need to take additional steps to ensure the IRS has your information. Second, confirm whether the IRS allegedly actually has a recent tax return on file for you. Even if you weren't required to file, even if your income was below the threshold that triggers a filing requirement, having something on file with the IRS can allegedly be the difference between automatic payment and months of delays. A simple return, even a zero-income return, allegedly gives the IRS the data it needs to process your payment quickly. Without that, you're allegedly waiting on slower data sharing processes that may or may not happen in time. Third, understand whether you are claimed as a dependent or whether you claim someone else. This single factor has allegedly excluded more retirees than almost any other rule, and most people allegedly don't even realize it applies to them. If you live with family, if someone helps support you financially, if you help support someone else, check the dependency status on your tax returns. That checkbox allegedly determines eligibility in ways that override income, age, and need. None of this allegedly requires advanced tax knowledge. It doesn't require hiring an accountant or paying for help. It allegedly just requires clarity, looking at the actual numbers instead of guessing them. And here's the truth nobody allegedly wants to say out loud. The worst outcome isn't being ineligible. The worst outcome is allegedly being eligible and never knowing it. It's qualifying for $1,800, assuming you don't, and never claiming it because you stopped checking. That's allegedly the mistake that actually costs money, not the rules themselves, the assumption that you allegedly already know how the rules apply to you without verifying. Now, let me address a fear that allegedly stops many retirees from checking their eligibility at all. They worry that looking too closely will allegedly force them to file taxes, that it will create new obligations, that once they start asking questions, they'll allegedly trigger audits or problems they don't currently have. That fear is understandable, but it's allegedly misplaced. Checking your eligibility allegedly does not automatically require you to file a tax return. It allegedly does not create legal duties by itself. It's information gathering, not commitment. You can allegedly review your filing status. You can check your AGI. You can confirm whether the IRS has a return on file. None of those steps allegedly lock you into anything. They just give you clarity about where you stand, and clarity allegedly gives you options. Not knowing allegedly removes them. And here's the final mistake that allegedly quietly causes retirees to lose money, doing nothing and assuming the system will fix problems automatically. This allegedly sounds reasonable. It feels safe. If I qualify, the money will come. If there's an issue, someone will contact me. If I miss it now, I can allegedly claim it later. Unfortunately, that's not how stimulus programs allegedly work. The system allegedly processes records. It doesn't chase individuals. If the IRS allegedly doesn't have the right information at the right time, payments move forward without you. And in past stimulus rounds, unclaimed payments allegedly didn't wait forever. Deadlines passed, filing windows closed, and people who assumed time was unlimited allegedly lost money permanently. Now, this is allegedly where everything stops being abstract and starts becoming personal, because if anything were to move forward, the people most affected allegedly wouldn't be politicians or headlines. It would be you, seniors, retirees, disabled Americans who depend on a fixed monthly check and allegedly have no margin left when prices rise again. If you're on Social Security retirement, SSI, or SSDI, you allegedly already know how tight things feel. Your payment arrives, you pay rent or the mortgage, utilities come next, groceries after that, and whatever is left allegedly has to stretch for medicine, transportation, and emergencies. There's allegedly no room for surprises. That's why the $2,000 number allegedly matters so much in this conversation, not because it's guaranteed, but because it allegedly represents relief that actually reaches the pressure points people are dealing with right now. A payment like that allegedly isn't about luxury, it's about catching up. It's allegedly about clearing a utility bill that keeps getting delayed. It's allegedly about paying for prescriptions without choosing which ones to skip. It's allegedly about giving breathing room, even if only temporarily. And policymakers allegedly understand that. When agencies analyze financial stress, they allegedly don't just look at averages, they allegedly look at what happens when income is fixed and costs are not. And the data is allegedly clear. Seniors and disabled households allegedly feel inflation longer and harder than anyone else. At this stage, the most important issue is allegedly no longer the rules, it's mindset. For many retirees, the idea of a $2,000 stimulus allegedly quickly becomes emotional. It feels personal, it feels necessary, and over time, it can allegedly quietly turn into something people count on even before it's confirmed. That's allegedly where stress begins. A healthier way to think about this money is allegedly simple. Treat it as possible, not promised. If the payment happens and you qualify, it can allegedly help cover real needs, groceries, utilities, medical costs. But your financial stability should never depend on a payment that is still tied to rules, deadlines, and IRS records that may or may not align in your favor. This mindset allegedly protects you from two extremes. The first is allegedly false hope, building expectations around money that may never arrive. The second is allegedly constant worry, fearing loss before anything has even been decided. Neither allegedly helps. Retirees who manage this best allegedly focus on what they can control: their records, their eligibility awareness, and their response timing. They allegedly don't panic, they don't assume, and they don't ignore deadlines. Instead, they allegedly stay informed, prepared, and flexible. Thinking clearly about the $2,000 allegedly doesn't reduce its importance. It allegedly protects your peace of mind while waiting. And in retirement, calm decision-making is allegedly just as valuable as any single payment. As we close, there is allegedly one final message every retiree needs to hear clearly. Most people who allegedly miss out on stimulus money do not lose it because they were ineligible. They lose it because they assumed they were. They assumed their income was too high. They assumed Social Security handled everything. They assumed living with family disqualified them. They assumed being over a limit meant zero. They assumed there would always be another chance. Those assumptions, not the rules themselves, are allegedly what cost people real money. Stimulus programs allegedly don't reward need, they don't reward effort, and they allegedly don't correct misunderstandings. They allegedly reward accurate records, correct timing, and people who verify instead of guess. For retirees, the safest position is allegedly not optimism or pessimism, it's informed realism. Know your filing status, know your AGI, know whether the IRS allegedly has current information for you, and know that partial eligibility is still eligibility. If you qualify, act within the window. If you don't, you allegedly lose nothing by knowing the truth. But assuming without checking is allegedly how $2,000 quietly disappears. In retirement, financial protection rarely comes from big moves. It allegedly comes from small habits: checking instead of guessing, understanding instead of assuming, and acting before deadlines close. If this breakdown helped you understand what's at stake and how to protect yourself, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because as these rules develop, as frameworks get finalized, I'll be here breaking down exactly what matters and what doesn't. No hype, no panic, just the facts you need to make smart decisions. Drop a comment below and tell me what concerns you most about these eligibility rules. I read every comment. Share this with someone who needs clear information instead of confusion, because right now